I firmly believe that fame and money don't equal success. I also firmly believe that lack of fame and money don't equal failure. To me, you're only a failure if you're not your real self.
If you don't recognize that voice, it's not surprising. It belonged to Marv Tollman, who took the world by storm in the early 1970s with his book, The Failure Fallacy. And his theory that success was not based on how rich you were or how famous you were, but instead on how real you were, resonated with millions of people. His book occupied the New York Times bestseller list for 57 weeks. Its success led to sold-out seminars in large arenas and numerous popular PBS specials, like this one from San Francisco's KQED.
You have a real you and a faux you. And the only way to get to the real you is to say, F you, faux you. Say it with me. F you, faux you. You've got it. You absolutely.
You're watching Marv Tollman's Failure Fallacy seminar, based on his best-selling book of the same name. Call now with your pledge of $35. That's just 10 cents a day, and we'll send you the fabulous Marv Tollman coffee mug with the inspiring message, "Wake up and smell the real you."
Marv's popularity knew no bounds, yet his incredible career as the nation's top self-help guru ended in a shroud of mystery, which you'll discover in part 1 of the 3-part series, Marv Tollman, Look Back in Failure. Marv Tollman and his failure and success theories had become a national phenomenon. Along with the book, sold-out arenas, and PBS specials, Marv found himself, albeit a miniature version of himself, on the shelves of America's retailers. The Marv Tollman doll was about to give the hula hoop, yo-yo, and pogo stick before him a veritable run for their money.
Pull the string, sir, with your finger, and you'll hear his famous zinger.
F you, faux you.
There was also a documentary about Marv that focused on his post-Hollywood pre-self-help guru days. He had moved to San Francisco, where he would try out his failure and success theories in the coffee houses where beat poets like Allen Ginsberg gathered.
A steady diet of wealth and fame. Nothing but empty calories. Put the real you on the menu. Never, no hunger again.
Interestingly, it wasn't just average Joes and Janes who were drawn to Marv's mesmerizing message. Celebrities were happy to hop aboard the Tollman train, as Hollywood historian Gerald Corman explains.
Hollywood celebrities were, and still are, notoriously insecure, even when they're monumentally successful. And whenever they would have an attack of, they canceled my TV series, I'll be doing dinner theater in Duluth as a busboy, they'd call Marv. They trusted him implicitly. And his list of clients included some heavy hitters like Jimmy Stewart.
When It's a Wonderful Life first came out, it wasn't successful, and I always felt responsible. That's why I hated talking to people who'd come up to me thinking I was George Bailey. I thought they were talking to the George who thought he was a failure before Clarence the Angel showed up. Well, anyway, Marv, he reminded me that George wasn't a failure, and neither was I, because George was pretty darn close to the real me. Well, after that, I loved talking to people like I was him. But I drew the line at giving out loans.
In time, Marv was knighted by Hollywood royalty, who bestowed upon him the lofty title of self-help failure guru to the stars. Business was so good that he stopped working out of his garage and opened an office in the Fairfax district of Los Angeles, directly across from Cantor's Deli, where he had a sandwich named for him, the Real You Reuben. The irony of becoming the self-help failure guru to the stars was not lost on Marv, who was forthcoming with his story on late-night television programs like The Tonight Show.
We are back, and I'm talking with Marv Tollman, the self-help failure guru to the stars. Marv, I would say that yours is what we would call a rags to riches story, isn't it? Or should I say failure to success story, because, well, that's what it was, wasn't it? Yeah, that's right, Johnny. I had come to Hollywood 10 years ago seeking fame and, fortune, like many aspiring actors, but it didn't quite work out. And now, here I am, working with celebrities, and in some cases, I'm more famous than they are. You are indeed, Marv, and I couldn't be more annoyed.
Yes, before he became the self-help failure guru to the stars, Marv Tollman wanted to be a star himself. The dream began when he was a boy growing up in Nutley, New Jersey. At the tender age of 8, he wowed the audiences at Lindcrest Elementary School with his performance of Stanley Kowalski in a musical version of A Streetcar Named Desire.
I just have to tell her that I know Rockefeller, just a pretty darn good yeller. Hey, Stella!
The applause was addictive, and Marv knew immediately what he wanted to do with his life. He was in every school play every year through high school. His senior year, he was voted most likely to be famous, most likely to be rich, and most likely to be rich and famous. It was this adulation that Marv desperately craved, hoping it would make him feel better about himself. His older brother, Terry, explains who was responsible for his lack of self-esteem.
Our parents argued every single night. It was all the time. Yeah, Mom would mostly, it'd be her complaining that Dad wasn't successful enough. Sure, his paint store paid the bills, but there was never any money left over for anything, like, jewelry or even trips. Now, the constant arguing, it really affected Marv. Every night, every single night, he'd wet his bed. And then in the morning, Mom would get so angry she'd yell at him. She'd say successful people didn't wet their bed. Then she would hang his pea-stained sheets on the front porch. And to make things even worse, as the neighbors walked by, she'd announce, "These are the sheets of my son, the failure."
Not surprisingly, Marv was driven to be a success, or rather, driven to not be a failure. And acting was his platform. But when he wanted to go to college to study drama, he was not accepted anywhere. Turns out, Marv was a good actor, but a not-so-good student, as his brother attested to.
Oh, Marv was a terrible student. In 3rd grade, he set the record for being forced to sit in a corner with a dunce cap on every day for 56 straight days. He was like the Joe DiMaggio of idiots.
Marv was not only crushed by this, but also by the lack of support from his parents. They told him that since most actors were out of work, they were the poster children for failure. At that point, he gave up any hope of becoming a movie star. With no direction, he reluctantly accepted his father's offer to work in the paint store. It did not go well, according to Marv's biographer, Dana Templeton.
So, when couples that he was waiting on, serving, would argue about paint colours or about wallpaper, Marv would be transported back to when he was a little kid, hearing his parents argue like they did. And he'd end up wetting himself. The customers would freak out and leave, well, understandably. And his dad got so annoyed that he would hang Marv's pea-stained apron in the employee lunchroom to embarrass him, which it did. After 6 months of no sales and hundreds of ruined aprons, Marv and his dad, parted ways.
Severely depressed, Marv left home. With the little money he had, he boarded a Greyhound bus to Florida. Within days of arriving, he got a job as a ticket taker at the Miami Playhouse, where original plays were performed by a regular troupe of actors. Marv's goal was to become part of that troupe, and 6 months later, he succeeded, though his New Jersey accent was a constant thorn in the side of director Hal Goodwin.
Well, his King Lear sounded like my Uncle Heshy. Drove me nuts. Every single play, I had one note for him. Tone down the East Coast accent. But he couldn't change. Luckily, most of our audience members were from the, New York area. They were transplants, right? So they thought Marv was brilliant. Of course, my nagging about his accent worried him all the time. He constantly asked me if I thought it would interfere with him being a big Hollywood movie star. I said, well, not if they do a remake of the Bowery Boys, it won't.
After 5 years at the Miami Playhouse, Marv decided to make the move to Hollywood. The moment he arrived in Tinsel Town, he was convinced that the ultimate in success awaited him, which biographer Dana Templeton recalls in vivid detail.
Marv was so sure of his impending fame that he wrote an Academy Award acceptance speech for Best Actor. Yeah, sort of in advance, if you like. In it, he thanked his parents for completely ignoring him, disparaging him, and generally treating him like crap, which inspired him to go on and become a great actor.
Of course, becoming a great actor never happened for Marv. What did happen was lots and lots of struggling, rejection, and false hope. To make money, he waited tables at night at Trattoria di Soldi, a popular Italian restaurant on Sunset Boulevard. During the day, he took acting classes and went on auditions. His success rate was painfully low, the highlight being a job as the host of a pilot for a new TV series called Celebrity Moyle. Hollywood historian Gerald Corman remembers.
It was a truly terrible idea. Famous people would come to the home of a Jewish couple 8 days after the birth of their son and perform a circumcision. The pilot featured Jerry Lewis as the Moyle, if you can believe that.
Hello, little baby. I'm the person who's gonna cut your little finger off, and you'll probably cry. But don't worry, little baby. You'll be fine. You do have insurance, don't you?
After the circumcision, which was supervised by a real Moyle, Marv interviewed Jerry.
I'm right here with star of stage, screen, television, and now circumcisions, Jerry Lewis. Jerry, how did you feel? Well, to be honest, I was a little nervous. I mean, I can't cut a sandwich in half without getting queasy. Well, Jerry, I gotta tell you, you did a bang-up job. Well, I hope so. And from the looks of that kid Schmeckel, soon he'll be out there banging pretty good himself.
Not surprisingly, Celebrity Moyle was not picked up. Equally unsurprising was the reason. The network executives felt that the show was too Jewish.
After the initial disappointment, Marv realized that if he was going to make it in Hollywood, he would need to take matters into his own hands. And that's exactly what he did. He used the money from the failed pilot to write, produce, and star in his very own one-man show based on the life of President John F. Kennedy's assassin. Here he is in a clip from Oswald the Musical.
Jack Ruby, don't shoot me. Let's discuss this over coffee. Oh, I don't feel so good in my tummy.
The LA Times called Oswald the Musical dead on arrival, and the Herald Examiner found it to be a conspiracy of horrors. While this was not a knockout punch, Marv was clearly on the ropes. 2 days after his show was brutally panned, he planned to quit his job as a waiter at Trattoria di Soldi and leave Hollywood for good. Then, fate intervened, as biographer Dana Templeton remembers it.
As Marv entered the restaurant, ostensibly to hand in his resignation, the owner, Stefano Di Soldi, he introduced Marv to his daughter, Silvana, who was visiting from Italy. Now, she was a children's book author. She had a series of books that were apparently popular in Italy. Il grande grasso gatto, the big fat cat. Il grande grasso cane, the big fat dog. Il grande grasso pollo, the big fat chicken. And Il grande grasso mucca, the big fat cow. She was in Los Angeles seeking a publisher for the English versions, and Marv was smitten. Big time.
A whirlwind romance ensued. Marv and Silvana were together every minute of every day. After 2 weeks, she returned to Rome. 3 weeks later, Marv flew to Italy to be with her. They were married a month later. 6 months later, she was pregnant. 6 months after that, Marv returned to Hollywood with his book, The Failure Fallacy. Thanks to Silvana's publisher, it had a ton of press behind it and was an overnight success. A few years later, it all came crashing down.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special bulletin. Marv Tollman, the renowned self-help failure guru to the stars, is missing. His longtime housekeeper, Mary Temescal, reported his disappearance to Los Angeles County authorities earlier this morning.
It was the shock heard round the world. No one could believe that Marv Tollman had disappeared, just vanished into thin air, and no one had a clue as to what happened. But there was no shortage of theories, from murder to kidnapping. Yet no body was found, and no ransom note was presented. Everyone was baffled, as Marv had no enemies, though it wasn't entirely true. Early in his career, Marv sparked the ire of the Fong Ling Fortune Cookie Company, which his biographer Dana Templeton sheds light on.
Well, they actually believed that Marv was taking their fortunes and rewriting them. Yeah, for his success-failure theories. They took him to court and they lost. The judge threw out the case when it was revealed that the Fortune Cookie Company was actually being sued themselves by the pop band The Ohio Express for appropriating lyrics from their 1968 song, Yummy, 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 I Got Love in My Tummy.
Shortly after his disappearance, there was a midnight vigil outside Marv's Malibu home. Thousands of devoted fans showed up, along with a bevy of celebrities who read snippets from Marv's best-selling book, the most notable being Walter Brennan.
Yeah, I don't go anywhere without Marv's book. His sayings are my North Star. For without him, I'd be lost. My favorite was, and still is, failure doesn't make you less of a person. Being less of a person makes you a failure.
Not surprisingly, Marv's office was deluged with calls from people from all walks of life seeking any kind of information, no matter how small. According to his assistant, Ruby Farkas, it was a crazy time.
The phones were ringing off the hook. Flowers were delivered round the clock. Cantor's Deli sent real U Reubens every day, which I couldn't eat because I'm lactose intolerant. They didn't go to waste, though. I fed them to Arnold the pig, from Green Acres, who Marv adopted and kept in the office. Arnold had been depressed after the show was canceled, and Marv helped him work through it. He loved helping everyone and anyone. I miss him every day. Marv, not the pig.
Millions of people missed Marv Tollman, especially his celebrity clients. Peter Falk took it pretty hard.
I loved Marv, but I was also quite jealous that he had a sandwich named after him and I didn't. I would have given anything to see the I Hate to Bother You brisket up there on Cantor's menu board. Of course, I'd give anything to be sitting across from Marv right now, listening to his pearls of wisdom, which obviously was a distraction so he wouldn't have to pick up the check. The man was a professional cheapskate.
After about a year, the Marv Tollman case went cold. He was off the front pages of newspapers and out of the minds of Americans. Occasionally, there would be the obligatory Marv sightings. None of them ever led to anything concrete, mainly because they were highly bizarre.
A farmer in Iowa told authorities today that he saw Marv Tollman flying a crop duster over his field of soybeans. His wife immediately disavowed the story and apologized for her husband, whom she said was not a farmer, but an out-of-work Harry Truman impersonator.
The National Enquirer got into the act as well, with headlines like, Marv Tollman abducted by aliens, suffering from failure issues after botched takeover of Earth. Several months later, a reporter for the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, Harry Kelton, started looking into Marv's disappearance. He wrote a series of articles that got people talking again.
I found it odd that Marv went to Italy, and a little over a year later, he came back with a book that was rocketing up the bestseller list. So I started looking into it.
And what he found was shocking.
The story that Marv met Silvana at Trattoria di Soldi and fell head over heels with her is true. But that's where the truth ends and the bullshit begins. She was not the daughter of Stefano di Soldi. She and Marv did not get married. She and Marv did not have a child together.
But that wasn't all he discovered.
Silvana never met with a publisher in L.A. She was not the writer of those children's books. The Big Fat Cat, The Big Fat Dog, The Big Fat Chicken, and The Big Fat Cow. She was telling a big fat lie.
The cold case of Marv Tollman's disappearance was now heating up again thanks to Harry Kelton's investigative journalism. Then, suddenly, it came to a screeching halt.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special bulletin. Los Angeles Herald-Examiner investigative reporter Harry Kelton was found dead in his room at the Roosevelt Hotel, an apparent suicide.
That initial report was apparently hastily put together. Harry Kelton did not commit suicide. He was murdered. Who did it was even more of a mystery than what happened to Marv Tollman. We'll delve into that in greater detail in Part 2 of Marv Tollman, Look Back in Failure.